Inside the OMG, episode number 126. That means 126 episodes in a row from March 5th, 2019 to tonight. I don't even know the date. Doesn't matter. We're in 2021. 126 episodes. But tonight, I've got a really, really special guest for you. And I am so excited to introduce to you concert promoter extraordinaire, Julian Douglas. What's up, man?
Me. That's me.
That's
this
you.
Is awesome.
That's you. This is so great.
Cool. This is cool.
I'm so glad
awesome.
you could come
Good to see
over.
you, brother.
Good to see you.
Wow, this is great. Hey, how is everybody doing?
That's right.
This is awesome. This is so cool. Like, I'm so excited to talk about myself. Because, it's my favorite subject.
It's your favorite thing. You know all about
subject.
it. You didn't even have to study it.
But I'm actually more excited the fact that there's people out there. You have no idea. Right before we went live, Arif and I were talking about that the biggest thing we've missed over this year and a half being entertainers is having people looking at us,
right,
interacting. Whether we're wherever we are inside of a club and in a crowd and a stage, having that interaction. And without feedback, without people, you can't be an entertainer if there's nobody to entertain to. And
That's right.
we haven't had it. So this is great. And by the way, episode 126. 126. So you've at least got to entertain people 126 times.
I guess I have.
You're ahead of me. That's cool.
So when the pandemic hit and everybody started streaming, I was like, I've been doing that already because I started in 2019. Every week. Crazy.
Awesome.
So we got a lot of ground to cover.
Sure.
And I don't want to skip over things, and I want to make sure we get to everything.
Uh-oh.
So let's start at the beginning, and let's talk about. You grew up in Southern California.
Yeah, basically, mostly. Pretty much, yeah.
And then, so what I'm leading you to is how you came to be a concert promoter.
Oh.
And so I know that you were a singer in a rock band or several rock bands, right? So tell me about, when did that start? When did the love of music and the love of entertaining and the love of being on stage? Because I just want to point out, if you don't know, not only is Julian a concert promoter where he's making sure the club is packed and he's making sure the people are coming down and he's taking care of guest lists. That's another thing. It's so funny. Everyone's like,
they're
hey
back.
man, do you think I can get, I need a +5. I need it. Right,
back.
all that.
Yes.
But he's also hosting the night. So he's on stage and he's making you comfortable. He's making you feel good. So he's the MC of the party. He's the master of ceremonies. So there's what kind of led you to that path to I'm gonna do this?
I'm totally glad you asked that. We had talked right before we were going live as well about the history and being in Southern California. I lived very close to here, and I'm in 1979. I moved to Southern California in 74.
Okay.
I won't say how old I am, but I was alive for a little bit before that happened.
Okay, for a little bit.
A little bit. So actually from New York, Long Island.
Okay.
Yeah, so Long Island, New York.
All right.
And I had totally forgot because I was about to tell you this grand story that we started talking about of how I got into the music industry.
Okay.
But all of a sudden I'm driving over here and it was like Flashback City, but really Flashback City. And I was remembering the real early stages of how I so-called got the music bug.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, and this is kind of cool because I was doing a podcast with a friend of mine, and I kind of revealed, I think, publicly the first time how I got my nickname, Mr. 80s.
Mr. 80s, okay.
And I will say that on the show here,
so
that because if whoever didn't get a chance to hear that, I'll say that because it's part of the whole story.
Yeah.
And it's a great one, but I've never said this to anybody publicly.
Okay.
In fact, I hope my wife's watching. It's her day off, which means she's right now on her iPad with a book, and then when I get home, she's gonna say, "Oh, you just did that thing, didn't you?"
Oh, did I miss it?
Yeah. Don't worry, I'll make her watch it afterwards.
She can watch the replay.
Yes, watch it. If you're home, honey, thank you. No, so this is great. I think she's maybe the only one that knows this story. I was first going to school in New York. And that was when I think everybody had to be part of a play or something. Everything was mandatory. You were a kid.
Yeah.
and I played Jiminy Cricket and
Okay.
Pinocchio. I played Jiminy Cricket, and I think I sang the song "When You Wish Upon a Star" or something like that. I think.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That was my first thing I ever did. And that's my first entertainment memory.
Yeah.
But then what happened years later, we moved out to Southern California. My mom had me in a private school out in the valley.
Okay.
And I was going there for several years. And it was, we were doing a spring musical.
Yeah.
And I got cast to do the lead.
Okay.
And I had to sing I Write the Songs. So that'll give you, and that was when it was a top hit,
Right.
when it was on the radio then.
Yeah.
So you can get an idea.
Yeah.
Barry Manilow was a singer.
So we're explaining a little bit.
Now I totally should have asked this before the show started.
Yeah.
Is this 21 and over? Is it family? What?
It's like family.
Okay, so I got to be a little careful.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
yeah. You can still.
I was going to say something, but back
Yeah.
then Barry was straight. So that's how old that was, but it's
fine.
It's okay. All right, sorry.
Okay.
I miss talking to people.
Oh my God.
Wow, this is off to a great start. But yeah, so I did, and don't you wish back in the day? That's one of the things that, being our age factor, we don't have the things that kids now have.
Yeah.
Parents have everything on their children. The minute they're born, I feel sorry for some of the pictures when they're coming out. But still, if you think about that, we didn't have any of it.
Right.
We didn't even have camcorders in those days.
I know.
So
I know.
what I wouldn't have given at that point to have had some video or something of me, that little kid, singing in front of that huge crowd.
Right.
That was it. That was my first time. I even tried at the time, I think, learning to play piano. That never really panned out for me. But yeah, so that was my first thing, and I had totally forgot.
Do you remember? So when you're on stage and you're singing that, were you nervous or were you excited?
Frightened.
Frightened. Okay.
Absolutely frightened.
Okay.
And then I think only because I think I had never done anything like that.
Yeah.
And I, you're gonna find this very hard to believe. I wasn't a very attractive child. So I was really dealing with I'm not this cute kid that were all the other cute kids, and kind of this dorky little kid, and my biggest fear, of course, was, and you get this being a singer.
Yeah.
Am I going to remember the lines?
Oh,
Because that was it. That's it.
Right.
I almost didn't care about my voice cracking or anything else. I was frightened. I'm not going to remember the words.
Yeah.
And I did, and I think by the end of it, all of a sudden, then watching people all
and
and
you're like,
you got 30 seconds left, and you're like, oh, I'm doing great. Yeah,
this is going well.
Oh man, just one song, damn it. Oops, sorry.
Right.
But yeah,
Just
so
one.
so that was the first, and then kind of music went the wayside, and then what we started talking about is the real flashback of how I got into the music. And this is actually kind of cool.
Okay.
And the reason I say it's kind of cool is a lot of people know me as DJ Mr. 80 sometimes. Okay. For many of you who don't know out there, I promoter for decades, host, and I love that you brought up my best expression that anybody can ever say is, I like to consider myself a master of ceremonies, a ringleader. I'm that guy in the circus.
Yep.
That was my hero. That's it. The grand guy getting the crowd active, and that's what it's about.
That's totally what it's about.
So I mean, look, we all loved Ed Sullivan, but just going out there and
really good show.
It's I mean, you want to just grab people and plus I know we're doing the casual thing here and stuff. But me and my wild jackets and everything like that. So I think we just had a psychological moment.
Yeah.
I think we just figured out why I wear all those crazy jackets. It was growing up, the whole Barnum and Bailey thing, for God's sake.
There it is.
So
there it is.
The point of that was that DJing. If you went to certain venues, you'll see me also DJing. I do these deals with the venues, and I'll go out there and I'll play Mr. DJ and everything. And the kind of semi-funny thing about that, before we get back to how this started, was that happened years back at the Brixton.
Okay.
I was doing work at the Brixton, and Adam Spriggs, and Adam, who's probably one of the greatest booking agents I've ever met in my life. And
which,
just
Adam,
a great
if you're tuning in, I'll be calling you because I want you to come on the show. So we're gonna talk about Adam's.
I loved it.
So Adam's a booking agent, and he's fantastic. So yeah.
Great. Let's get that.
I
I want to watch it because I would love to hear his story because he's like went from this little, booking thing to doing some of the greatest festivals in Southern California.
Oh yeah.
So that's fascinating. But this is my time. So Adam, you get your hour
Another
later.
show.
Yeah.
You get
So Adam roped me into playing DJ Mr. 80s. And it was one of those things where when they were trying to figure out,
see a need, fill a
should
need.
we get a DJ to do this? And it was partially my fault too, because I'm like, well, no offense, but whoever you get to hire, they're not going to be as good as me. And I didn't mean that way. It's like if you're dividing up the money and you're going to pay that for that. And
right.
that, I honestly did. I think I told him, I said, well, you know what? Well, give me the money you're going to pay him, and I'll do it too.
Right.
And then I think the first show, I did too good of a job. And then that was it. That was
it's like we don't need to go anywhere else because not only do we have a DJ, we have a host.
Yeah.
We have the MC.
Yeah.
So we're covering, it's like you're covering the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because I remember when Olio would do shows at St. Rock, I always wanted to make sure you were part of the night.
Thanks.
Because I knew that it was like the full package of the night was going to be represented.
And you know what?
I'm
going to get to the story of how this all began, but that was kind of the one, and I'll tell you, it sounds horrible to say, I hate DJing. I do. I really hate DJing. And it's not that I hate the job of DJing. It's just because I've accomplished so much in my life that I don't dare want to say it's beneath me, because it's not. It's just that I've done so many other things. I want to be maybe out with the crowd, interacting, doing other things, not stuck in a booth doing the music or something like that. Right. But at the same time, I realize, to me, it's what you just said. If I've got, almost every band that I do shows with, these are bands that I know personally.
Yeah.
So I feel a responsibility.
Right.
It's my responsibility to make sure that, you don't walk into a venue and they just have whatever playing on, whatever.
It's the full package. People want to come out for a night of entertainment.
Right. And
not just like cherry picked, like, oh, well, that one band was kind of cool, but what's going on now? Like, I don't get it.
You want to walk in that venue.
It's like you want to be taken care of. You want to. It's like, I paid good money to get in. I want to escape.
And it's like the old days, because we were talking 70s and 80s.
Sure.
That, that's what we grew up on. And music, you think about discos and the old disco stuff that was going on. The DJ controlled the entire club.
Right.
The DJ controlled when people went to the bar to drink.
Oh yeah.
They
knew what to play.
They decided when people would get on the dance floor to make out and get happy,
get sweaty, and then it was like, oh, they need to buy some more drinks.
They knew everything, and so that still exists now.
Yeah.
That's one of my frustrations, that call us the dinosaurs, but when they decide just to throw on Pandora or Rhapsody or one of those things, they don't know what they're doing, because sure, there's good songs playing, but you're not reading a room. Right?
Reading a room.
I always say one of the most frustrating shows I would ever do was at St. Rock when I would do Spasmatics.
Okay.
The most difficult shows to DJ, because you would have such a young crowd. Even though you had people our age, you would have a young crowd. And if I played the wrong 80s song, like if I played that Paul Abdul song that hit number 3 on the charts, but not number 1, I could lose that crowd. So I'm sweating myself, always making sure every song is boom, 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 perfect.
Yeah, right.
But you know what? I could get those people losing their mind right when that moment the Spasmatics took stage. And then those people had never had a night out like that. And that's what they always used to do. They always used to come up to me and say that. And I'd always come home and I'd say, hey, honey, and she'd say, how was the night? I'm like, oh my God. Exhausted, but wow. And I'd get cocky and I'd be, I had that crowd on fire. And that was fun. So that's why, don't get it wrong where I say I don't like to DJ.
Right.
I do love it. How do you not? Anytime you're doing any type of entertainment and people are loving it, it's because of what you've done.
Exactly.
It's great. It's satisfying.
Super fun.
So let me get right back to that. So, God, what were you thinking?
Why? This is so great, though. I knew we were going to be like tangent.
It should have just been like a 2 or 3 part episode, because this is just, you asked me to talk.
No, this is good.
I get to talk. So real quick. So this, are we able to say where we are?
Well, we're in LA.
We're in LA.
Yeah, we're in LA.
So we're in LA.
Yeah.
So this part of LA is right near, as we mentioned, where I went to high school.
Okay.
And so this is awesome. I'm spilling. Here you go. Nobody knows this unless you went to high school with me. Big secret. Here we go. So it's hysterical. I was an introvert. I couldn't talk. I was always getting in trouble doing little things.
I don't know how that's possible.
I had communication problems. So then it's totally true. So somehow or another, our high school counselor, who happened to be my woodshop teacher, they were going to start doing high school dances here at the high school and El Segundo High School. And he said, I want you to be a part of this. In fact, I would like, something about you, and you're passionate about music and stuff like that. So what I ended up doing, my buddy and I, we'd go over to his house and I'd bring all these records, and then, he'd pull out his collection and we decide to do this. So this is what's crazy. It was, I think, maybe our junior year or something like that.
Okay.
And I'm doing these high school dances. The first one we had to do, you had a turntable, and it was like 1950s turntable.
Oh, wow.
It's a school.
Yeah,
so
right,
they don't
right.
have anything.
It's like,
so yeah, they had this old turntable, and then they had the coolest looking but horrible, like a basketball, referee mic thing, on a stand right there.
Totally.
So here was the thing. They had a record player.
Yeah.
So I would start the dance to play the song.
Yeah.
And as the song's ending, what do?
Right.
You gotta take the needle off the record. Right. You gotta pull the record off. You gotta go grab that record you got waiting, put it back on, make sure you get it on there, And back then it had that little weird, what was it, whatever that thing would do? Yeah, that ding thing that would pop on it. Yeah. So you had to do all that. But when you're doing that,
were you filling time?
Yeah, you couldn't have dead air.
No way.
There's people dancing.
So wow.
So I'm taking it off, and I'm all of a sudden like, and I see them out there, and I'm like, hey, class of, how we doing out there? Debbie, that's a great dress you've got there, and here's one I think you're gonna really love tonight, and then I'm like grabbing my friend, I'm like, oh my God,
right?
I just had to talk to those people. So I think it went okay.
I think it worked out.
That's how it happened. So I ended up.
So the school dances,
and
you're
being
DJing
forced to talk on a mic and fill time, and that went on. In fact, the great thing was, I think I was still my senior year of high school, and I used to. What started getting me into the whole Sunset Strip scene.
Yeah.
Here's another. I don't think I've ever said this one either.
Okay.
So my mom bought a place in Long Beach. And in the middle of our senior year, she moves down there. And I'm like, what are you doing? I'm not leaving my senior year. Luckily, my best friend, she let me stay there on their couch during the week. And then the weekend back in Long Beach. So he also had a good friend of theirs that had the love seat that came out too. And it was this really great guy who worked at this photo lab up in Hollywood. And he was just, as a term we used back in the 80s, he had a lot of sugar in his pocket. So that's all I see. You're laughing. Everybody else at home, they're getting on Googling. Actually, I wonder if that would come up, sugar in the pocket on Google.
I wonder.
So he had, and he started taking us to all these great clubs back then. And these were the clubs of the day.
Okay.
And he started taking us to a place called the Odyssey.
Okay, I don't know about the Odyssey.
Really?
Yeah.
Odyssey.
So when I came out, I got here in 87.
Because it was gone. No,
so I don't know if the Odyssey was here when I came in 87.
So the Odyssey was in a lot of movies. It was your stereotypical New York, Studio 54 dance club.
Wow, okay.
It was
right on
Sunset? It was on the catty corner of the Beverly Center.
Oh, wow.
So it was right off La Cienega. And
no way.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I lived 4 blocks from there for a while.
Yeah. So the first time we went, and there was no age limit. So or 16 and over. So the first time we went, he takes us there, and I'm not kidding you. We walk in. He says, "Let's go upstairs and get a drink." We walk up the stairs, and we walk in, and it was like a Studio 54.
Yeah.
It had the giant light rigs coming down from the ceiling, and go-go dancers, and lit up floor and all this stuff. It was just intense. Like, wow. He goes, "Yeah, let's go. I'll show you the whole club." So we walk upstairs, and we get up to the top of the stairs, and he goes, he's giving us a tour. And so there's the TV room, and there was this TV, big screen TV, and it kind of was sunken in but raised, And so I made the mistake, and I kind of looked up to look in, and he goes, "But don't you go in there." And right when he says that, and let's just say it was a whole bunch of boys getting to know each other.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow!
What
I live in a little beach town. Whoa! So I was like freaking out. So then he goes over here and he goes, restroom over there. Goes, don't go in that restroom. And I kid you not, he opens the door and there's like, woo, everything.
There's a lot going on.
Girl getting the drugs for free because she's being active at that moment, you know? And the people waiting in line are helping her out. So, it's all right there because it was the 80s. And, like 1983, 84.
Oh,
so this
man,
is
right.
84.
Wow.
So this club ended up being like unbelievable. Now, I mention this because what happened was not long after that, somebody I met at the club said, hey, I'm going to be DJing and doing lights here on like Friday night. I was supposed to do DJing at a bar in like not far from here in North Hollywood. He goes, you want the gig? Because I heard you DJ. And I'm like, oh my God, this is my first real DJ job. And I was like, yeah, I'm in. So I dressed all, up, and of course I looked like, Robert Downey Jr. Actually, that's not a good reference to the 80s with the name Julian. That's another thing. Don't watch Lesson Zero, please. It's not a good name association. But so I get to this function, and I get in there. Oh my God, it is like biker dive bar.
Oh wow,
so bad. And all they had was like one rickety old record player.
Hey, okay.
This little riser, and then I find out that there's a lot of sugar in pockets.
Yeah.
He did not tell me I would be DJing a gay club. It was a gay biker bar.
Oh my God.
And all I bring, and I'm dressed in like white collared up the whole, and I've got the new wave, Spandau Ballet haircut, and I look like I could be in Spandau Ballet. Kids, look them up.
Right.
I mean, it was,
wow.
So
did you bring like your record collection?
I brought two cases, the milk crates of records, and everything I brought was new wave. And I'm playing New Order and Devo, and let me tell you, when I played Whip It, they kind of liked the idea about it. But that was my first gig DJing.
Wow.
And then after there, the guy felt so bad,
great.
He knew it. He knew what he was doing.
Oh,
he wouldn't
man.
do the gig, and he purposely wanted to throw
hey, I got this extra gig.
Yeah.
I can't do it, but maybe.
Yeah. So he felt so bad, he let me assist him for a while at the Odyssey doing lights.
Got it. Okay.
So I ended up doing lights for a long time there and messing around with doing the DJing stuff. And so let me just tell you what kind of place this was. Madonna used to like go-go dance there and shit. Oops, sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, you'd look over and on one of the podiums, she'd be over there dancing away, and and that was back, like when she had like the hair going on and stuff. We're talking early Madonna. That was like when things were good. Now, if you really want to Google, kids, Madonna hair armpits, it's hysterical. The 80s. You can't just talk about it. Everybody's heard stories of Motley Crue on tour buses. You got to talk about the other stuff. Madonna dancing like this and going, what's that under her armpit there? Those are better stories. You don't get those. So, but
so
yeah.
So we're talking. This is like 84.
84.
84.
Because right after that is when I went into the military.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
And then I was gone for a bit, and then I came back, and then decided to be a rock and roll star. How's that for a segue?
That is great. Okay, so some shout outs. Really quick, we're just going to do some shout outs.
See how I did
also, I love that because we're going to get right to that.
Yeah.
Some shout outs. Fantastic.
Oh my goodness.
So AJ, what's up?
AJ!
Thanks so much
Boys
for tuning
and girls,
in.
AJ in the house.
Love it. Mom and Dad have tuned in. Hey, so Denny Dixon. You know Denny.
I love Denny.
Okay,
Club Vodka days.
So Denny and I grew up in the same neighborhood in Northern Virginia. So sidebar. His family lived literally like I could walk to his house in 4 minutes. Okay.
Wow.
And he was a few years older than me, and he and his brother Jack on drums
Yeah.
and Denny on guitar. And I would, as a little kid, I'd go over to their house with my friend, and we'd sit in their basement and watch them rock Van Halen like Denny
Wow.
knew it note
Yeah.
for note. And so my friend and I were just like, wow, I got to do this.
That's awesome.
Denny knows the story. I mean,
This is great.
he lived it. He was there. He remembers this punk kid coming over and like, who's this kid from the neighborhood? And I'm just like all into it and just checking it
So
out.
cool.
And so that's so great. Denny, I'm so glad you tuned in because I saw that we had that mutual friend connection, and I was like, oh, I need to like mention Denny to you because I go way back. So there you go.
Wow, that is awesome.
Yeah.
Any other shout outs?
Yeah, we do. Another mutual friend, Rob Harper. Rob Harper says, Julian Douglas, what a great guest.
What is he like kissing ass for some reason?
So,
like what? Rob, what? No, Rob is on. Rob, man, I missed Harper's, man. Harper's was just one of the great bars that catered to musicians and people like rock and roll music. And Rob is a great guy. Hello, Rob. I missed the place. It was so fan friendly. You know, it was just more of a sports bar, but he would get these great musicians in there, freaking like legends. And Rob brought me in there because he wanted me to, you know, help be a part of it, which was such an honor. And
that's awesome.
And I missed that one-on-one.
Yeah.
God, I remember we did the Drum Wars one night with
Okay.
I was going to say the Appice brothers, but, you know, Appice and Appice, because, you know, you got to get that right. So I just don't go there. I'm friends with both, and I'll never figure it out.
Right.
But, yeah, I mean, we're talking, you know, freaking legends.
Yeah.
And they were right there, hanging out with everybody.
That's
there was
so
no
cool.
backstage. It was the bar. So, Rob,
So
thank you
cool.
for that, my friend.
Michael Tran says, Mr. 80s rules.
Michael Tran rules. I'm just telling you that right now.
All right.
Michael, thank you for being like not just a good friend, but thank you for loving rock music, all kinds of music. I should say he's more of an 80s freak, which is great. But people like Michael that no matter how busy they are in life, they make sure that they get out every weekend to see shows. And
That's where
without
it's
people
at.
like Michael, we can't
That's
do
where
what
it's
we
at.
do. So
Absolutely.
friendship aside, thanks for doing what you do, Michael.
Absolutely. Pete Salazar. Hey.
Hey, Pete. Colin Myers on there too, or I don't have my glasses.
Yeah, Colin Myers is
Colin,
on there.
buddy.
He says, good stuff, you guys. FM station days. FM station. Totally. I remember FM station.
We might have to get there too.
Yeah.
We'll try. I'll try to condense.
Okay. We got a lot of ground to cover. All right. So, Michael. So Michael says, what about Barry? So, is that? I don't know if that's towards me or towards you.
Is it Barry Berry or Barry?
No, Barry. So I don't know if you're referring to Barry. Barry's the drummer in Oleo, or maybe it's a Barry that Julian knows.
Yeah, I don't know.
So you'll have to clarify.
It's weird. I just talked to one of the best promoters in the South Bay area, Barry Bly. We just talked the other day.
Yeah.
We
yeah,
grew up in-
Berry.
Yeah, that's why I was like, oh, Barry. Yeah, it's weird because I just talked to Barry. No.
Super great.
Yeah, I love Barry.
He's awesome. A great show Julian did was Janie Lane acoustic birthday at Harper's. Right?
We don't want to like get sad.
Okay, I know.
Janie Lane was one of my best friends in the world, and that's all it goes out saying. Yeah, Janie. There's so many Janie stories. In fact, when we talk briefly about the Sunset Strip, I'll throw some. That's because that's where
awesome.
Janie and I became great friends.
That'd be awesome. Those Spaz shows were the best. Mr. 80s had the crowd all warmed up and riled up before the boys came on stage.
Jared in the house.
Jared, he says, we all play our first gig somewhere. Yeah, sugar in the pocket. That's right. Dave Wilson's asking, what's the story with Saint Rock?
Okay, we'll get there. We'll get there because that's really not for me to answer, you know, because I get hired, you know.
Right. So we don't really know. So
we kind of don't really know. We hear things.
We hear
all.
things,
we
but,
hear things.
but we're just hearing things. We don't know.
Yeah.
So Nicole, I guess she has tuned in. She says, ask Julian what I was doing in 1984. What was Nicole doing in 84?
So there's nobody out there that pretty much, if you know me, then you know my wife, which sadly happens to her. You know, that's the one thing with social media. I'm so happy for all the people out there that know my wife, and then unfortunately you have the people that have followed you for years on social media, and then they approach your wife when she's at that rare gig,
Yeah.
and they start talking to her about things, and she like, who is this person, you know? And it's like, oh no. So if you know my wife, you might also know she may be a little younger than me, just a little younger. So we like, I'll get so excited, and we'll be talking about. In fact, we did it. I think the other day there was some. It was like Saturday Night Live or Fever, you know, and I'm talking about beauties, and oh my God, I just remember, even though I was so young, I was already in front of the mirror starting to dance and sing, and then, you know, Freddie Mercury came and I started doing all the moves. I mean, come on, it was like 76, you know, how great. And she would look at me with just that look, and she would just go, and what was I doing in 1976? You know, and then I go, well, and then I'm like, oh, you were born in 76, you know, and you're like, oh. And then I get excited about stories of like high school in 1984. You know? And she's like, and she'll give me the look.
Yeah.
And how old was I in 1984? And I'm like, oh yeah. And she says she's gonna get me with that now. She said on social media she's gonna start finding pictures of me, like maybe dressed all out in, you know, on the Sunset Strip in the 80s, and then she'll show a picture of her like in the crib, you know.
Yeah, right. It's like,
maybe do the yeah. So
exactly.
Oh boy. Thanks, honey.
My gosh.
Love you.
So if you do have any questions, throw them in the comments, and
please do.
Julian will do his best
totally
to answer.
All right.
Yeah. All right. So
jumping
I
into
had music.
So I got back from the military. Things didn't last as long as I had planned.
Okay.
But I was so honored. I got to do probably one of the greatest things in my life. You know, I got to serve for this time that I did, and it was the greatest ever. Like, you know me as a friend, and I'm so, you know, strong military based. And that was even before that, but I got to do that. Right. So it didn't pan out as the way everything was planned. Ironically, and here's kind of a little rock and roll tie into that, which is very interesting. I joined the U.S. Coast Guard to be a photographer for the Stars and Stripes. A lot of people don't know that out there. That was my purpose. I had hoped to be stationed right over here in Marina del Rey.
Okay.
And I had it all worked out.
Yeah.
And then when I got in, I found out to get into photojournalism school and to work with the Stars and Stripes, I would have to be in there for almost the full 4-year term and then opt for another 4 years. And I was like, wait a minute, the recruiter never discussed that. And that's, what am I going to do for 4 years? Yeah. This is not why I'm here, you know? Right. So that's a whole other thing. But I'd done photo in high school. I was a big photo journalist kind of person. I photographed everything. I was so into it. So what ended up happening is somebody saw photos of my one best friend I had been talking about and I at an Oingo Boingo concert we had gone to. Okay. Oh, wow. And we got contact. It's all tying in here. Yeah. And I got contacted by somebody, and they invited us down with a photo pass to take pictures at a show. So we were lost our mind back in the 80s. And here's a great little tidbit. Yeah. I like to tell this story that, you know, I was like anybody else. I went to El Segundo High School here in the South Bay. Yeah. You know, K-Rock, you know, rock of the 80s. Yeah, it was the biggest thing. You know, when we could afford the tickets to a concert, we went to every, mostly back then, I was the total new wave head. So, you know, everything, you know, we couldn't afford the Duran Durans, although we would get to those. But, you know, whatever other show was coming into town, that's what we would try to go do. Up in the rafters, the worst seats. You know, but Oingo Boingo was our band. We were Boingo fanatics. Wow. You know? So here we are, and we got to, like, meet the band. Yeah. The next thing you know, they are blown away by the photos. And we end up becoming their tour photographers for a short period of time. That is so cool. We actually went on a short tour with Oingo Boingo and got to be their tour photographers. I love that. And it was the greatest ever. Now, I just want to just quickly say, I did not know that. And Johnny Vatos was our guest last week, drummer for Oingo Boingo. And here, Julian, tour photographer for Oingo Boingo. I had no idea. This is amazing. I should have gotten in on there and asked a few questions and put them on the spot, but gave my friend Johnny a break there. It's all good. So yeah, so that's how that started. Now, a weird twist into the music and everything. My grandfather, I never had a father growing up. My grandfather had, my grandmother had just passed away right before their 50th anniversary, and so my mom and I decided I was going to fly out to New York, and I ended up staying with my grandfather, and I kind of helped take care of him for a while. I ended up staying there for a year.
Oh, wow.
Now, here's more crazy stuff I've never told anybody.
Yeah.
So I'm going to college out in New York for like a year, just taking a break from life, doing this, spending time with my grandfather. And this great university I'm out at there, they used to have these pretty cool up-and-coming bands playing at this, giant quad area out there.
Okay.
And one day they had this kind of new artist that was performing. And the guy was Charlie Sexton.
Oh,
I
wow.
was a Charlie Sexton fanatic.
Yeah.
I think he's one of the most, I don't even want to say underrated, because a lot of people know how incredible he was.
Sure.
This was a guy at 17 years old was playing guitar for the Rolling Stones.
Yeah. Just
Toured
awesome.
with the Rolling Stones at 17. This guy's amazing.
Yeah.
Look up Charlie Sexton. In fact, I turned AJ onto Charlie Sexton and he lost his mind.
Yeah.
So this guy's incredible. So anyway, I met Charlie Sexton, and I met their tour manager. And we got talking, and they wanted, I told them what I was doing in LA. They wanted to see my work, and I showed them a bunch of my work. They asked me to go on tour with them as their tour photographer.
I love
and
it.
I had my first crossroads. Where do I leave my grandfather and leave college and go on tour with Charlie Sexton as his tour photographer, or do I just do what I'm doing? And I chose not to. It was one of those great what ifs. So I did, and I stayed doing what I was doing, going to school.
Probably did the right thing.
Probably, I
for
knew
your
I did the right thing
grandfather.
for my grandfather, and family is everything. You
did the right
and
thing.
where everything
sure
I've done
would've
in
been
life,
cool.
but it would have been interesting.
Yeah.
So I
Man, that's awesome.
something I never told anybody. So boy, get your
Yeah,
drawing
see,
out of me.
that's right. That's what we do here.
Yeah, so I came back. Finished the year, like I said, came back here. And that was 85, 86. And then the hair started growing.
Yeah.
And I started going back out to Hollywood, but now met all the rocker buddies I
Right.
had. I started getting involved with meeting all these people in the South Bay. I was living down, in the area here, of course. And I started meeting all these guys who turned out all to be in bands. Don Dawkins, Bobby Blotzer,
Right.
Jack Russell.
Wow.
So all these guys,
Yeah, they're all in the South Bay.
they're all in the South Bay.
Right.
Vince Neil,
Right.
Ended up living in Redondo for a while. So all these South Bay people don't realize
Yeah.
how much of a huge metal scene of the 80s was right here in the South Bay. It was crazy.
Right.
So I'm all of a sudden hanging out at the Red Onion and
Yeah.
all these places nightly with these guys. And we start hitting it off, and now all of a sudden I'm on the Sunset Strip with them. And some of them were already kind of rising.
Yeah.
Some other guys that I knew at the time weren't anything yet. And I started the urge all of a sudden. Now, remember, I had really not done anything, and I kind of made a joke about being the high school nerd. Well, the nerd when I was young. It was really bad in high school. I forgot to tell you, mention that part. This is so horrible. Times have changed. So I used to get beat up regularly in high school, all the time. I beat up. I was a nerd, and my name might have been a little different than it is now.
Okay.
So I had a bad nickname that they used to call me, and once I heard that out loud, I'm like, oh, run, because they're coming after you.
Gotcha.
There was one day I was walking in the hallway, and this one jock just grabbed me, and we had the typing room, because they had typewriters. It's this crazy. It's this device.
These ancient
it's the only way
machines.
that you could write letters was on a typewriter. It's really crazy. Google that one. So all of a sudden, this guy grabs me and he picks me up by the back of the neck in the belt, and he just throws me into a table full of typewriters, just to do. So that was happening to me all the time in high school. That's a great thing. So more of my introvertness, just
Yeah.
afraid to talk to people and that whole bit, I was in a shell.
Right.
So now, years later, now I'm all of a sudden with, and back then, we won't get too deep here, but I wasn't popular with the girls. I was the nice guy that every girl wanted to hang out with because there was nobody safer, Here's that nice little guy, he's a little nerdy little every 80s movie, that I was Ducky. Come on, that was me. I was Ducky. Just so nerd. And I was not Blaine. Now my wife's gonna end up commenting on that because that's my wife's crush is Blaine.
Yeah.
So I was the Ducky, and so all of a sudden now here we're getting into the mid 80s, and I'm on the Sunset Strip. My hair's getting a little long, and I don't know what happened. Now, honey, you may need to go.
This is the part of the story.
No, this is why I love my wife, because my wife just goes, yeah, and. But no, it was really weird because you were there in the 80s. You were on the Sunset Strip. And all of a sudden, I don't know what it was, but here's this guy as my hair starts getting longer, and I was real pretty, and now I'm at all the Whiskey and the Roxy and at Gazzari's, and there are like models everywhere, and they're friendly, like really friendly, and they think I'm like something, like, you know, and not a nerd. I'm no longer
Ducky.
You're
not Ducky.
I'm not Ducky.
Now you're Blaine with hair.
Blaine. Honey,
right?
Blaine with hair.
Nicole, you married Blaine with hair.
Remember that. Blaine with hair. So she either vomited or
she was
making me dinner with candlelight.
Yeah, right.
One of the two.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's it. It started. All of a sudden, I realized, you know, this is something. And I started, but I was still a little bit introvert. I started doing some vocal workshops.
Okay.
I did something one night somewhere. Couldn't even tell you where. I met Janie. That's where I met Janie. We were doing some vocal workshop. Okay. And he invited me to some gig.
Was Warrant already happening?
Yeah. Yeah. And probably you want to talk about memories of the Sunset Strip. I know people want to hear more of that than me. But something that'll never happen again. Never happen again is the Sunset Strip. If you weren't there, you can even hear stories, you can watch movies, videos and stuff like that, but it's a time period that can't be repeated. And what I mean by that is you would go up there, and it was when cruising happened with cars, where people just drove all night long back and forth on the Sunset Strip. You couldn't walk just on the Sunset Strip because like 2-3 feet over deep, it was filled with people.
Yeah.
And everybody was just going from one bar and club to the other. It was like the Rainbow to the Whiskey to the Roxy to Gazzari's, down to the Central, which is the Viper,
I remember
which
the
is the
Central,
Viper Room,
which became the Viper Room. Yeah.
So there was all these places. You never knew guy or girl walking up the street because all you saw they were all skinny, and the hair was all down to the butt.
Right.
I was one of them, for God's sakes, And in the jeans, that didn't help.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
But one of the cool factors I'll always remember, and a lot of people have probably heard this if you haven't, it was always hysterical. It was the war of the flyers. And that was the coolest thing. What would happen is first somebody would put a flyer up on one of the telephone poles, and they would staple their flyer. And it would be like early in like 6 o'clock at night, and they would put their flyer. They're playing the Whiskey that Friday, like the first band. And then all of a sudden, I kid you not, by like 20 minutes later, you come in, and it'd be like this thick from people flying over the other flyer. Then what would happen is, do you remember when people would get on people's backs to reach up and get as high as they could so that nobody could either tear it down or get above it? And you would just have rows of this. Every night this happened. So think about a time period, if you go back in history, and on a weekend night, you do have, Rat and you do have Slaughter and Warrant and Poison and Motley Crue and Cinderella and all these bands playing these clubs. They were on the street begging to get the people out. But then when they started getting bigger, if you were a guy and you were trying to be in a rock band, you had to go there because, if you went to go see Poison, it was just nothing but gorgeous girls.
Right.
So you had to go hand your flyer out and get those girls to come to your... As long as you got the girls, the guys would come to your show.
That was the plan.
And that's what it was.
That was the plan.
So that was it. I woke up and all of a sudden I had hair and met women that didn't feel I was Ducky, and the attention happened. And I never did anything successful. I never was with any name band, nobody big whatsoever.
Right.
I always joke the best band that I ever got to play with was I sang for years later was like Silent Rage, my friends, and I thought, oh, I finally got to sing for Silent Rage. And bless their heart, it was great. But the thing was, I was a part of it though. And the reason I like to talk about that and not getting away from I mean, getting into the story is a whole nother thing. We could sit here for a week. You could have a marathon.
I know.
Forget Jerry Lewis. We'll do our own and try to find a cause to donate money, and we'll just talk. I mean, we could sit here and talk about the tour buses with Motley Crue, the tour buses with Guns N' Roses, the after parties, behind the rainbow up the hill with Motley Crue, and you want to talk, Janie and I and those stories, and everybody else, Don Dokken, the list goes on. Everything you heard about the 80s was 20 times worse. I mean, you have to remember what I said before about something that'll never be repeated. We all live by devices. You're watching us on a device right now.
Yeah.
You didn't even have, they didn't even back then really yet have the box disposable cameras.
Yeah.
No. So if you had a camera, you had to have like a big old Nikon with the lens and stuff like I used to take pictures. Yeah. So, a girl couldn't just pull out a camera. You couldn't just pull out a video thing. So before Vegas, what happened on the tour bus, it stayed on the tour bus.
Right.
The things that happened in those clubs, what happened backstage, you can't, and plus, no, we're in a different movement, so you can't have that anyway these days, because we respect everybody, so we wouldn't want any, thing negatively to happen. I'm just saying that back in those days, everybody was happy doing what they were doing. That was different. That was the big thing. Everybody wanted to do what they were doing, and you can't do that again. And that was part of what happened. It's like the 60s. You see all the things about the 60s and parts of the 70s and the free love movement and these parties and I think what do they call that? An orgy, right? Yeah. So this thing that, look that up because I don't even want to talk about that. But they did those things, shows and the Doors and Venice, and that was part of it. Of course, that doesn't happen now, but in the 80s it was on a whole nother level.
Yeah.
The drugs and and that. So for the record. Because people always, and okay, you know what? Since it's partly let me just say something else. Can we talk? God, I miss Joan Rivers. If Joan had see me now, can we talk? I was not a person that did drugs in the 80s. Can you imagine if I did cocaine? Can you imagine if I took something to make me talk? Do you want to be around me? My wife will tell you I can't have coffee. I can't have caffeine. Can you imagine if I had a double espresso latte grande or whatever those things? I can't. No.
Right.
So in the 80s, no, not putting stuff up my nose to make me talk.
Right.
Or as the old joke was, so you want me to have something that will not make me so I can't sleep and I can't
Sure.
Yeah, why would I want to do that?
Exactly.
That was why I did it. But I would have screwed me up. I would have never, we would have been doing this interview in 1984 and now we're finishing up. So, the reason I say that, the reason I bring that up is not that I care about who people thought of me in the 80s. If I didn't do it then, I'm not doing it now. So why would you ask me if I can get it for you at a club? Oh my goodness.
There it is.
Seriously.
There it is.
There is nothing worse, and whatever, I'm not being judgmental, when people our age that you think you've known for 30, 40 years, and they come up to you and hey, Julian, can you, and you're like, you look at them, thank God I'm always busy, because you said I'm busy hosting the show.
Yeah.
Like, I always try to be nice, but
I gotta go.
I had to do, I don't know what the customaries are now, because, we haven't had too much live music, but don't. Okay, thank you. I got that off my chest. So, do we need to check on questions?
I think we do. I think we do. I think you need a little break.
I'm going to drink some
water.
Get a
drink. Oh, man.
Goodness gracious. Wow.
That's awesome. All right, so some questions. Let's see here. Jared, hey, Julian, do you see local bars, venues ready to really push live music again, or think it'll take a while to come back at all?
I like that question. Jared, rock, buddy. I want to say, hey.
Yeah.
There's your answer.
There it is.
There it is. I would have said, honestly, partially shortly, and now with the weirdness going on, I'm getting scared we're going to take a step back. And we're going to be the ones that pay the price. I think what venues and places wanted to do is they wanted to get bands with familiarity back first, and I understand that they wanted the tribute bands. The big bands maybe weren't all out there, and we don't have, like in the South Bay, we don't have the venues to do that right now, because there are no venues to have like a Skid Row,
Yeah.
You want some stories? Sorry, I think there's too many bands I was with back in the day. so that we started down here getting like a lot of the tribute bands because financially it works for the club. Everybody knows the band. Everybody wants to see that band. They know the music. So in turn, it hurts the local musician, which stinks.
Yeah.
And I thought progression-wise, that meant now we have the local bands coming back. And now we've got weirdness happen again. And they're going to go after us. I'm sorry. I don't know what it is, but why they want to go after music venues, the musicians, and the fans, I don't get it. But we're going to pay a little bit of a price on that. I'm not that young anymore, so he's going to read some of the next questions. But I know we will get on to a topic we need to talk about and how I became a promoter.
Yes.
I just remembered that. That was supposed to be the whole thing.
Oh, man. Really appreciate your support of tribute and cover bands. Thanks, man. That's what Jared says.
Oh, heck yes.
Addie says, Ducky was the man.
Yes!
Nicole says, no. So I don't know. There was something that you said earlier that made her say no, but she's laughing. All right.
If there was any comparison to me and Blaine, there's your no.
Oh, that's probably the no.
Yeah, it's a whole lot of nope, as she would say.
Gotcha. Okay, so my daughter Alexa, who's 20, she says, that makes me so sad. I so want to experience Sunset Strip like that.
Yeah, well, hey, no, you won't, and it is sad. It was something, I said, what we were talking about, and we'll get, and I'll speed up. Don't worry about that. But it was a memory that we were fortunate enough to be a part of. One of the advantages of doing what I do is I get to know so many people, and I've known so many for so long. It's surprising how many people I thought were here during that weren't. They moved out here in the 2000s. They moved out here in the late 1990s.
Right, and you're like, wait a minute, I thought you were here for that. Yeah.
And which also explains a lot. I know a lot of people like the rainbow, okay? People are obsessed with the rainbow. And like if you know anybody, we're having a birthday party, like kind of pre-pandemic, Saturday night at the Rainbow, and you're like, why? 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 What's your obsession with? Why do you have? And and then all of a sudden I realized why. Yeah. For so long I was kind of being a jerk. I was like, why would you go there? Like, it's the Rainbow. Yeah. I was going to the Rainbow in 1983. Right. Okay. Right. Because I was like 1 year old. And then because these people, they weren't there. And it's what she just said. I wish I could be a part of the Sunset Strip. So they can't be a part of that. But you walk into the Rainbow and they see all the pictures of the stars that were there. When you see the picture of Slash, and when you see all the others all around the walls, and then all of a sudden that may be the closest they're ever going to get. Right. Then of course it makes sense. You can't experience what we did, but you can experience something a little and get the feeling of what it might have been like. And that's great. So you know what? Have your birthdays at the Rainbow. Go for it. All right.
Go for it. All right. Those Halloween Boingo shows were the best.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah. Do you happen to know my buddy Gary Golding? He was the singer of the South Bay band Too Loose. Did you know he was on Naked and Afraid?
Oh God.
This is Dave Wilson asking.
Dave, the name rings a bell. The band rings a bell. My father-in-law is obsessed with that show, and I won't watch it because it's just frightening. Yeah, because I think I flipped through the channel and they were naked, and it made me afraid. So that's it. That's the name. So
that's it. Jeff King, what's up?
Wow,
man? He says, "Mr. 80s, you rock, brother. Love you, man."
Oh, thank you. Thank you, because Jeff, you're one of those guys that you do everything for people that are trying to rock local bands, tributes. He just gets in there. He'll roadie, he'll freaking load a van, he'll get a cocktail for somebody. Absolutely. He's just in there, Thank you, Jeff, so much.
Nicole says, Jaeger Boy was bad enough. Coke Boy would be a nightmare.
See, when you have a wife like that,
she's just got to throw him in right now.
She had to. Yeah,
we're doing it.
Hopefully, we won't have time to talk about the adventures of Jaeger Boy.
Okay.
Wow.
Barry, what's up? Barry Chenault, you've tuned in. Thanks, man. Thanks for tuning in. That's Olio's drummer. So thanks for tuning in. Dave Wilson, I miss Club Caprice. Met Kevin Bacon and many others there.
I was going to say, we've all met Kevin Bacon in one way or another.
Right. Oh, my God. Okay, so
all right.
Just a little heads up. We are like at 7:59.
Oh, crud.
So, no, we're good. We can go.
Well,
But
I'll
I'm
try
just
to
letting
really
you-
speed it up. I'm going to do speed answering here. I am so apologetic.
No, it's all
you
good.
knew what you were getting
I
into.
know. This is good. I wanted this.
All right. So let me try to do a condensed version. Because this is like part of like the interesting stuff.
I know there's a lot of
all
ground
right.
to cover.
So the promoting, you wanted to know that was like the
Yeah.
whole what you wanted to talk about. So really, honestly, what happened was one of the stories I will always simply say is the 80s.
Yeah.
I was around everybody famous. I did everything with everybody famous. I didn't get famous in the 80s. All my friends got famous. I didn't. So, and that was fine. You know, I still led part of the lifestyle, still got to see and do so much, and I was in the middle of it all. It was phenomenal. It'll be something I'll never forget.
Right.
So what ended up happening is then we know, the 80s blew up.
Sure.
It was done.
Sure.
And then the 90s came, and we won't talk. If you can take having me back on the show, there's a hysterical how things went from that. I'll just give a hint to make so you guys request, get them back on.
All right.
So what did I do when everything in the 80s died and I knew I would? I ended up becoming a strip club DJ.
Oh, wow.
And I wasn't the only one. I bet you didn't know that a few singers from some other bands did.
Interesting.
Yeah. Oh yeah. What do you do if you've got a voice but you don't have a voice to use anywhere? Well, you go to the places where they want to hear you keep talking all night long. And who else might be in that club? Maybe it's Bambi, maybe it's Heidi. Anyways, so I did that for a while.
Oh my God.
Which was also a weird connection of Kevin Bacon going on with the 6 Degrees because all of a sudden here were a lot of girls that I knew that now they were dancing and and I was somehow or another I was still around strippers. But the comments are going to light up from my wife in a minute. But somehow I left the strippers in the 80s and now in the 90s I was around strippers, and my wife's going to say and porn stars is what she's going to write next.
Right.
So I'll just say I was involved with that for a long time. In fact, I was even the voice of the porn conventions in Vegas. Yeah.
No way.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
There's some hysterical stories about that. But yeah, you couldn't go to AVN and the CES Awards, and I was hosting
You were
all
hosting.
the parties, and
Wow.
people would be in the convention, and I'd be walking through the hall, and they, oh my God, I knew that was your voice. I knew it anywhere.
I knew it.
And sure enough, it was. So I did that for a while, and then all of a sudden, we were getting into the late 90s and going into 2000, and there was the small resurgence of that music. Because here we are, we were getting to that 10-year point, everything in life, 10-year point.
Cycles.
And on the strip, that was starting to come back. And little bars like the Cat Club were emerging.
Yeah.
And in fact, I started doing things with a bunch of bands trying to help them out. And other venues would start contacting me. And they're like, hey, don't you know so-and-so? And I won't name the band. I'll say bands. I'm not saying they were the ones. But we were talking, and some of the great bands. One of my best friends, the bands, LA Guns. So we were in it in the 80s. And that tier of band, the Faster Pussycat, the Bang Tangos, you know, that tier of band, not just, the Motley or the GNR up there, but just, but we're so huge on the strip. So these bands hadn't done anything in like 10 years, really notoriety-wise for a lot of people, maybe outside of Hollywood. So people were desiring this. Venues sometimes didn't even know how to get hold of them. FM station was like the last, holdout, and then that was gone. So people would be getting hold of me. And I was like a go-to person. Hey, can you get this person? Can you get this person? And then I can't even remember the year, but like when AOL started, because I still have my AOL. And that's my email, because I'm not young. And so I started a few bands helping them out. And I started a website when websites started. And I started a website back then called julianshotspot.com. And every weekend we would put out who was playing where. And what happened is, and many of you know that I kind of was integral of Steel Panther getting them off the ground. It was more because back then I attended their second show. I was friends with the guys, and I got invited down, and my buddy said to me, he goes, hey, come on down, check it out. and see what you think. And I went down there, and they had this great show, but it was a train wreck. It was like horrible. It was at the Viper Room. It was the second show. They were Metal Shop back then.
Yeah.
And the manager, talked to me after the show, and he said, "Well, what do you think?" And I told him it was the night before they did. So it was called Club Camaro. And
That's
yeah,
right.
it was Club Camaro
Yeah.
featuring Metal Shop.
Yeah.
And right before it was doing that, it was a gay dance club.
Okay.
So they had the same DJ playing the same music, and they had a chain link fence still on stage with gay go-go dancers, all the way until Metal Shop took the stage. So I said, okay, if you want my opinion,
we
I'm
gotta
going to give you a couple
change
things here.
the night here if we're gonna.
So I said, I'll help you, and I'll bring some friends. I'll use my website, which was nothing then, and I'll email, directly all my friends to come on down. And he said he would give us a couple booths, and give me a guest list, and we did that. And out of nowhere, things started changing, and literally the rest is history. In fact, a lot of people may not know this, when Metal Shop then I think went to Metal School, and they got too big, and they were going over to the Roxy. They had a long call with me and said, we can't do this without you. We need, this is going to be big, a big jump, I should say. And they asked me to help get them there. And I did, and then the same happened when they went over to the Key Club. And then, as you know, the very last show I did at the House of Blues Sunset Strip was with them. Because that's what I've been doing forever. So that was where my promoting started. And the first real job that I ever got, and here's one for you. I may have put this on social media before. Slim Jim Phantom of the Stray Cats.
Oh man,
Slim Jim Phantom gave me my break. I had tried starting a club out in Orange County. This had been years before, and it was just before the time.
Yeah.
And it just didn't work.
Okay.
And then the Cat Club had started. The Cat Club was going on Thursday nights, if you remember. There was nothing better. So he wanted to try to do more, and he said, "Hey, would you like to try to do Tuesday nights here, which is the worst night of the week?" And I'm like, I didn't care. I was like, yeah. He goes, "But I want you to do you." And what we did is we brought in a kind of a jam, not a jam, but a kind of a jam, but kind of rock band doing all covers. And I had mostly the guys from Silent Rage get together and do this thing as Band X. And they played, but they wanted to do the old Gazzari's bikini contest.
Oh wow!
So we would have the guys play, and then we would have a bikini contest,
right?
And that's how it all started. And you know what? It went for a while,
yeah.
And then as it was kind of starting to dissipate, and it had nothing to do with me. It was, the people that make all the wrong decisions that aren't in our industry. I had a friend of mine that not a good friend at the time yet, but just a buddy I knew from the Strip. Joe Sutton. And Joe Sutton came up to me, and Joe said, "Hey, I'm starting this new club called Club Vodka. And I think between the two of us, I've got these other business partners, but I think you're the missing piece.
Right.
You're that like face. You're that good guy that, I think you could make this something." And for anybody that had been in Southern California for all those years, Club Vodka was the greatest rock club we had on the Sunset Strip and around Hollywood for, I think our last was our 10th or 11th year anniversary party we had. And, we did our run, at the Key Club forever.
Yeah.
Club 7969, we were doing things.
Yeah.
And, so many other places. So that was where the club promoting happened. And I actually remember it wasn't when I forget where we got into that a couple years when I was doing that. I was down in Tijuana with my mom at the Hard Rock, and I think it was a couple of my friends. We would always go down there and have lunch, just the weirdest thing. And so we're down there having lunch, and I kind of went against my mom. She was like, had that talk with me, and she was like, "So, what are you doing with all of this? What do you..." When are you going to kind of grow out of this fad almost, almost back at that, even I was still young, but old enough. And she kept like, I'd still be willing to help you go back to school and all that stuff, and I looked at her and I said, "You know what?" And I made that one of the greatest decisions of my life. And I said, "You know what? I think I want to do this full time." Like I was still dangling around doing stuff with stripper related stuff, not the strippers, because, never. I just more, I wanted to be a music promoter 100%.
Right.
And I wanted to do that. And I dived in. And everything started opening up.
Yeah.
And it was great. And let me just say this real quick. I know we're on time, but just one of the great things that happened, spilling the stories I talked earlier about, one thing I had spilt but probably not many people know here, how I got the name Mr. 80s.
Oh, okay.
You don't even know, do you?
I do not.
So it was at the Viper Room at a metal shop show.
Okay.
And I was with one of my best friends and one of the greatest guys ever, Eric Singer from Kiss.
Yeah.
And Eric and I are at the bar, and he's with Chad from the Chili Peppers.
Okay.
And I had met Chad before, but Eric wasn't sure, so he goes, "Hey, Chad, I don't know, have you met Julian? He's the king of the 80s." And I just went, "Whoa, Eric!" I'm like, "Whoa!" You're making me uncomfortable. That's a little too much for me. I'm like, what? Let's tone it down a bit. And we're laughing. He goes, "All right, Mr. 80s here." And so, Chad, Mr. 80s, Chad, and we laughed and joked about it. And somebody, said something and like Mr. 80s, and hey, don't you know Mr. 80s? And he started effing with me all night long.
Yeah.
Hey, come meet Mr. 80s.
Right. And there it is. So we can thank Eric Singer for
Eric
that.
Singer from Kiss gave me Mr. 80s.
That's
so it's
awesome.
Cool effing story. I love that. So yeah, and then that's been it. I've been blessed that I don't live in a mansion in Beverly Hills, but I've been able to still stay in the South Bay. I'm trying to speed part of this up because I want to just mention something real quick, which I know you do want me to mention.
I do want you to mention that.
So, I met my wife. We just had our 10-year wedding anniversary not long ago. And life can't. Well, I'm not going to say that because we had a conversation when the last time I said life couldn't get any better. Life is going well, and life was going well. And this we were joking about. Life couldn't have been any gotten better, and then the pandemic hit. So, music has been great. I joke that we talked about bands like Duran Duran, Billy Idol, Rick Springfield, all these bands that I used to see in the rafters. And now these are people that I've worked with for years. People that on my social media, you guys have seen hundreds of pictures with all these famous people that I've been friends with. I've known, and that's why. A lot of people always ask, dude, I see you backstage with Skid Row. One of the great ones when we had Skid Row last, at St. Rock. And I two instances that I got watery-eyed. Takes a lot to get me there. Skid Row played St. Rock, and the guys between one of the songs made everybody clap and pointed to me and said, give it up for Mr. 80s Julian Douglas. They said if it wasn't for him, bands like us might have faded out. But he has done everything in his power to keep our music alive and you people knowing where we are to see him. And I got watery.
Yeah,
I was like, oh my God.
really
After the show, I hugged him and I almost cried. And then the same thing happened right before the pandemic with Steven Adler. I've known Adler and the boys, back on the Strip, the GNR, I was there. And so Steven did the same thing. He got on top of the drum kit and he had his drumstick and he pointed to me right there on the stage. And he made everybody clap and scream and holler for me. And he gave a similar speech and I almost cried. I was like, oh my God, and that means everything to the world. And that's why, because I was there with them all. Yeah. And here I am. They're still playing. Venues may be different for some, but we're still doing the music. So that's why I say, that I'm still being able to do this is phenomenal. And that music is coming back. I have a feeling music's going to take another hit. I hope I'm wrong. Yeah. But the point is that if it does, it'll be back because music survives because absolutely. Of anybody watching, you're doing this because you love music. That's right. You love it. So for me, what you wanted to ask, I know you wanted to kind of talk about me in the travel industry. Yeah. So I'm glad, I know it's a little off the music topic, but but it's not. It's all related. It's related because a few years back, you might remember. I'm a little bit busy and I never get to always finish everything I want to or on time. So I started writing a blog. So if I can do a plug, it's never updated the way I want to. I always had visions of doing it all the time like I should. But I had an idea of starting to write, not my memoirs, but kind of things about my life in music, travel, and food. And I created a blog called Listen Journey Savor, SAVOR, Listen Journey Savor. And it's the same name.com. And I started writing. And I did that for just a short time, and instantly the Travel and Adventure Show, which is the nation's largest, doing everything in travel and conventions and all that stuff, they got hold of me and invited me to the Los Angeles Convention Center at the time to check them out and just introduce themselves, and I did that. I developed a really great relationship, and I'm trying to do the short version here, and then all of a sudden, as you know, sadly, right before the pandemic, I had, just like with music, I had became friends with, I know you guys will laugh, but a lot of my travel idols, people that have been on travel shows for years. I always said if I could be anybody in a way, Anthony Bourdain.
Sure.
I thought, what a hero. But taking aside from music, who didn't love Anthony Bourdain? You want to talk about a different rock and roll rebel. Bourdain was everything, he was.
Sure.
And he brought a whole new style of person that the whole world recognizes. And so, here's a little known fact. One of the travel and adventure shows, I started becoming good friends with him. I met one of my weird idols at the time was Samantha Brown.
Okay.
And Samantha has been one of the biggest TV stars in travel.
Sure.
And I had a friend. My wife couldn't be there, so her best friend, they went with me, and they were like, "You should go talk to her." And I'm like, "No." Me, the guy, that hangs
Shy.
out with freaking,
The shy guy came back.
I was totally frightened.
Yeah.
And they pushed me to go say hi. And I was so afraid to say hi to
That
Samantha
is
Brown.
so funny.
And I did. And we started talking. And that's all it took. And I'm not kidding. So she starts talking to me and she says, "You know what? You are like mind-blowing. Like, you are fascinating. Like, has anyone ever told you that you should be a TV show?" And I started laughing and all that. And she goes, "Well, hey, sorry, I got to go run and speak on stage. That's what they do at these conventions. Thousands of people, and they're on stage talking about what they do, travel and everything." So I'm not kidding. Half hour later, I'm back in this media area hanging out, and she comes. I hear Julian, and it's her. And I'm like, "Oh my God, Samantha Brown. This is so cool." I'm like, "Wow." And she comes over, and she's with this other girl. And she goes, "I just want to introduce you to a friend of mine." And the friend starts talking. She goes, "Samantha told me about it." And we talk some more. And basically it turned out that this lady was the in charge of programming and marketing at the time of the Travel Channel. And she said, "I want to do a TV show on you." And I was like, "What the?"
That is amazing.
So long story short here, we ended up doing a small reel. It got pitched to the travel show. It went all the way up to the top to the executives. And at the last minute, they decided against it. The irony is, the idea was based on what we talked about. My life. I had this grand vision I won't want to talk too much about, because probably not great if I reveal the secrets behind my TV show, because I don't want everybody trying to rip it off. But the good part was it was about me. So I mean, you can't be me.
Right.
But it had to do with me, and like I said, music, travel, and food, and we were doing this with all the people I know. And she thought this was mind-blowing. And the problem was the executive said they felt it was a little like pigeonholed, or not pigeonholed. They felt it was just too much, like, it's just too much 80s. It's just too much like even 70. Like, we needed to be more expansive. We're trying for something different here. So that went the wayside. Samantha and I were talking right before the pandemic at the LA Travel Show. And she asked me about that. She said, "So whatever happened with that?" And I told her, and she just said, it just went off saying, bad words.
Yeah.
And basically said they're full of, because she said that is their 100% demographic.
Yeah.
She goes, "What were they thinking?" She goes, "If it makes you feel any better, all those people got fired and they're gone." And she said, "You know what?" And this is horrible. Right before the pandemic struck, she said, "You need to do a high quality, reel again, and forget them and pitch it to the other companies out there, and you've got your show."
Right.
And we planned on doing that in the pandemic hit.
Right.
But so what ended up happening is, so just to advance, the travel show said, "Would you like to speak at one of our conventions?" And I would, and you want to talk about, we went all over my poor wife. You talk, everything. And all jokes aside, I can't do anything I do in life without my wife.
Sure.
I wouldn't. Yeah. I got asked, and I got asked to do the San Diego travel show, and that's what's so weird. We forget how much time has gone.
Yeah.
But that was January of 2019.
Yeah.
And it feels like it was like a couple months ago.
Right.
So I was so nervous. In fact, I've some of my friends I've told you, and I've told you before, the night before I did the travel show, we were in the hotel in San Diego, and I was telling my wife, I'm backing out. I can't do this. Like, I'm scared.
Wow.
I'm embarrassed. I don't know what I'm going to talk about. I was frightened. And I couldn't do it. And then we went out to dinner with another famous travel star, Rudy Maxa.
Okay.
We went out to dinner, and he's the savvy traveler.
Yeah.
And so we were out to dinner, and he turned to me and he said, "You know what? I'm going to give you some advice. We're good friends." And he said, "Nobody knows what you're going to talk about tomorrow." And I kind of looked at him. He goes, "Whatever you have planned that you're rehearsing and want to speak about, they don't know. And show pictures of your adventures and your life and everything you've been doing." And he goes, "Just be you." He said, "Talk." What a concept.
Wow.
And he said,
I can do that.
And he said, "Look at the people in their eyes and tell your story. Communicate with them."
That's it.
And I did, and I went out there, and I was scared. I saw the people that own the travel show, and they were over there. And after I got off stage, they came over to me, and I'm like, "Oh my God." And they came over and they said, "You were phenomenal." And they said, the season was already going, and they didn't even barely have much left. And they say, "We're going to call you Monday, and we want to see if we can squeeze you in on a couple more." And that's what we were saying. They squeezed me in. I was going to be on Philadelphia in March of 2019 and Dallas. And then I had joked that I had this full calendar of the spring of all my concerts.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, my bags were packed that night before leaving for Philadelphia.
Right.
And I got the call. Pandemic was happening, and they had to postpone. And Dallas, they would probably postpone. And fast forward to now, I'm doing my first travel and adventure show September 11th in Dallas.
That's
All that
awesome.
time went by.
Yeah.
And the good news is there's only 3 this year.
Okay.
And I'm doing Dallas, I'm doing San Francisco,
Okay.
and Atlanta, and I think we have 9 next year, and I'll be doing all of them, and I'll be traveling all across
awesome.
America. And in doing that, I'm going to be traveling, of course, to Europe, doing a bunch of trips in Europe, going back to New Orleans, I think, by the end of the year. Unfortunately, my wife and I, we were going to New Orleans in 3 weeks, and we just had to I think we're postponing that trip because, unfortunately, what's going on out there, and they're getting ready to shut down things there. So the cool part of that is I'm getting to be around music in different countries, experience the culture, the food. Oh, and I'm sure there's a bunch of people out there, they're asking, what are you doing with the travel show? And just let me tell you real quick, if you've never got a chance, we've been really fortunate at the travel show. I've been doing all these, you've seen these virtual conventions.
Right.
So we've been doing virtual conventions. I've still got to be me. It's been a little different. But I've been fortunate to meet a lot of people in Italy. Italy is my specialty I talk about. How crazy is that, right? The kid, Ducky, is now this Italian rock star. And we will go over there, and we know all these people that operate private tour companies. And, the last trip alone, I was driving a $250,000 Ferrari through the Italian countryside. I was going to the Colosseum on my birthday, doing a photo shoot for a company there, and going underground at the Colosseum. We went to the Vatican, and we went there an hour and a half before it was open to the public. There was nobody there. I'm taking pictures with the Swiss Guard. I'm in a gondola in Venice, Casanova's Palazzo, and I'm doing all this stuff. But the cool thing is I'm at the conventions talking to people and letting them know that this isn't the rock star Julian that got to do this. Anybody that wants to go anywhere in the world, I just talk about Italy. You can do this in London. You can do this in New Orleans. You can do it anywhere in the world. And I tell them how to do it.
Yeah.
Just you go online and you just need to know, and I point them in the direction. And this is what I get to do now. So I'm doing, and that's what was great about the music. It was kind of funding me to get to do this stuff so that I can turn around and talk about it. Now all the travel stuff is opening up. So I just am hoping this continues. I'm going to hush right now. Before we log off, check in with everybody.
Let me check in.
Oh, goodness.
Let me check in.
Thanks for being patient, you guys.
Addie says, I'm loving all these stories. Jeff says, I really miss the Brixton and St. Rock.
Oh.
Let me know when you are promoting another show. I am always at the Doll Hut in Anaheim. That's what Jeff says. Marty Stalls Frost says, enjoyed hearing
That's
you talk.
my cousin.
Guys. Yeah.
Hey.
How about that? Dave Wilson, are you going to see GNR next month? Stoked to hear that Mammoth will be opening. Are you seeing Guns N' Roses next month, or?
Yeah, we'll see. That's the. Yeah. So Kiss, when it comes to Kiss GNR, that's the pro and the con. When you have all these people as your good friends, especially you guys know, you guys all know me and GNR, we're real close. And the old joke is, just never in LA. Because LA, everybody wants to get on a guest list. So usually we're always taking care of at all the other shows. So we'll see what happens. Sometimes last minute we get a call like the night before, and the guys will say, hey, are you coming? And you're like, well, no, why would I come? Because you're here in LA.
Right.
You tell me never to even ask.
Yeah.
Well, of course. So we'll see what happens. Do I want to go? Of course I do. Sure. That's like crazy. Sure. Why would I not?
Right.
Well, maybe my wife, on the other hand, no. I feel so sorry. She has seen Guns N' Roses so many darn times. But in answer, somebody said, what are you up to? If you don't know, actually, just real quick. Yeah. So this is crazy. I think you saw. I did my first other. So since the pandemic,
right,
I had done 3 shows in December. I'm not. Many of you probably know I do work with Yachtly Crew.
That's right.
So another subject, but the DJ thing is funny about that, because as much as I joked about hating the DJ, if you've seen Yachtly Crew, you know that I'm a part of Yachtly Crew as a character called DJ Yacht Rock. I've got the whole outfit, and I am DJ Yacht Rock. Playing all those smooth hits of the 70s and 80s. So it is a character that I do, and it's a blast. So I've been working with Yachtly since they started, and if you've seen Yachtly, they're freaking what an incredible show. So Yachtly had their first outdoor show, was like a private party in December out in Arizona. A corporate party. It was one of those parking lot things. It was so strange. So we did it. I flew out with Yachtly, and we did the show, and it was very strange, but we did it. But it was good. I messed up. It was a hysterical mess up. I'll just say this because it had been so long. And the one thing that I not have to do, but my moniker or my tagline that everybody knows when it's with Yachtly Crew, right when they're taking stage, is I do this, all aboard, and I hit this foghorn, right? And I've got the outfit on there.
Sure.
So I'm like doing all this, and that's also the cue when the band kicks in, right? So I'm like, ladies and gentlemen, let's go, Yachtly Crew. And the band's waiting, and the sound engineer, like, oh my God, it's been that long, I forgot. And then afterwards the band just gave me so much, jokingly. So we did that, and then in May, their first indoor show, which happened to be their last indoor show they did, the Marquee Theater in Phoenix, or it was Tempe, and right out there. And I flew out to do that, and that was incredible. That was like how long it had been. It had been a year and like 4 months or something like that. So we did that, and thousands of people, and people. It was great. People, it was weird. Only because people were coming up and they were like almost crying, what I mean? They were grateful.
Yeah.
So it was such a great thing that we had done. And then I did one other show with the Spasmatics. Unfortunately, it was right when like the first week venues opened up. So it was just a cluster. And it, they were just only because there were so many rules and regulations. Yeah. And then what we were going to start doing like a residency every week, and they pulled the plug the next day. It was like, oh my God. And then the first show I did since all of that was this past Saturday night. So I'm doing a new residency for the time being. And it's really different. And we talked about music and how everything's different. It changes. I'm at Rock and Brews in Redondo Beach. Rock and Brews in Redondo, and then starting this weekend on Saturday in Buena Park, so we're going to be doing this simultaneously. I'll be at Rock and Brews every Friday and Saturday. It is live music. It is a real concert. We've got tribute bands. But if you know Rock and Brews in Redondo, there's condos and homes and everything right there. They've never been able to have live music. So what they're doing, so they're doing what's called a silent concert. I know you're thinking, what the? So they have these high-tech headphones, and I know there's like people going, oh hell no, but and I was the person, this is stupid and ridiculous. You wear headsets that when you come in, and they supply these headsets. They got their start, of course, at like dance concerts and all that stuff, because if you take them off,
right,
there's nothing. It's silent. It's creepy. But you put it on, and what they're doing is the bands are plugged. Everything is going right through direct, like would be the board. Right. So you're hearing. In fact, there were people that thought they were lip syncing. We had people leave, and when they turned in, they were like, "Dude, I didn't come to watch a lip sync show." And they're like, "No, this is live."
Right? They're really
In fact, I gave them a great suggestion. We're going to try it this Friday. Where we're going to try to set up mics, booms everywhere to hear the crowd.
Right.
I go because like the old concert records, you have to hear the crowd.
Yeah.
And
otherwise,
so you're missing that. But so that's the deal. We're going to be there and it's all the great bands. Everybody, if you went to St. Rock, it's all this Friday. We've got Abbey Road, the Beatles tribute. Okay. Saturday we've got Hollywood Stones, the Stones tribute, and then the next week we've got, I believe, the M80s. Okay. And then Saved by the 90s. Right. We've got Erotic City and Wayward Sons the next weekend. So we've got them all. Yeah. They're all coming. And all the bands are on board. So this thing works. It's different.
Right.
It's
but
different.
It works. And it's a way to do
and
it.
it's like, hey, for now, if we can do this and we can have live music in the South Bay, and I know people were watching everywhere and we kept talking about the South Bay, but that's, where we're at all the time. So for the question, I'm doing this every weekend right now. One more plug. If you haven't gotten your tickets yet, this is kind of cool. And this is important. People are asking, what about Yachtly Crew? Because I brought that up. Yachtly Crew is back doing their first show in, a year and 8 months or whatever. The Whiskey.
Oh, wow.
We are doing a residency every month. Okay. The first one is on my birthday.
All right.
September 25th.
Nice.
For the Libra fans out there.
Okay.
And September 25th at the Whiskey, Yachtly Crew. So tickets are on sale, and I say that because it is literally my birthday. I will be there, and that's the other thing. By the way, I'm at every show I do. Okay, I don't know. I get that all the time on social media. Are you going to be there? Right. And I say hosted by Mr. 80s.
It says
or
hosted,
whatever.
I'm
Yeah,
there.
yeah, I am there. That I've said that before. I'm promoting a show. I'm promoting it because this is something I enjoy and like. I got offers all this time to do a lot of weird, crazy things that I just felt weren't right. And this thing I'm doing on the weekends is a little different, but I want to see for myself. So I'm like, if I can be a part of it and help it along, then I'm doing something for the music business.
Right.
If it works out, great, awesome. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But if it allows venues that never had live music now to have live music,
I think that's really cool.
That's what's important.
Yeah.
So progression, we need to do a little something.
That's right. I like
so
it.
Thank you. If there's any last questions, I will end for now.
All right. Beth, my wife, says, "Oh my God, finally, hi guys." She was busy doing stuff.
I'm so sorry, Beth.
No, it's all good. Thank you for sharing. Addie says you need your own Netflix show. Like seriously. That's what Addie says.
Well, as I mentioned before, I'm working. If you know what I will do,
this travel show idea. Yeah. I mean, and we'll talk once it's over. Yeah. But
so I will tell you this: I will post.
Really cool.
I will post on my social media tomorrow afternoon. I've got some stuff I'm working on. I told you again. I always do feel bad because I just started a YouTube channel and I have no real content on it yet. And I was going to start doing like mini travel episodes for the time being. The reason I say that is because the idea was to do Listen, Journey, Savor, to do travel, music, and food together.
Right.
But at the time when I started trying to get this going, there was no way to really go out and eat, and there was no music. Yeah. So I can't do the whole concept. So I did create a reel for just like my travel, and I'm going to use that as my intro to the travel and adventure show. And it's a really high-end reel that I've done. So I will post that, and you can get an idea imagine that and adding music and food to
Right.
that, and you'll get a concept of what I'm going to be doing in the future and be making my own show. So you say Netflix, hey, if you guys know anybody at Amazon, Netflix, etc., that's the plan. And trust me, the Travel Channel wanted to do a show with me, and they knew what the real show was going to be, and they were mind blown, and they were like, this is like unreal. And I do hope that the opportunity is there. Like I said, unfortunately, we had stuff going on in society.
Yeah.
If I wanted to go out on tour with a big band this past year, there was no tours to go out on. And if I said, hey, I'm going to call the guys and go meet up with Motley Crue for this tour this year.
Yeah. What tour?
What tour?
Yeah.
So a lot of even what I want to do, I can't do yet. But... maybe I can get this thing sold so that it pans out for. So I want to thank Arif. And talking about music real quick, I said this before if you're on my social media. The tribute bands, the big bands, there's not a lot, and it's not a negative thing, local bands that and I hate using the word endorse, but where I say that, this is a band that if you get the opportunity to see, their music is phenomenal. Oleo, and Oleo is that band. Oleo, hey, it's not me, okay? Oleo, if you remember at St. Rock, unfortunately before the pandemic, they won the Battle of the Bands. They were the ones. They played at Beach Fest, tens of thousands of people. They were the band. They won that because of who they are. If you like a band that just knows how to entertain and get your spirits going and realize you went to a live music show because that's why you're there, to have a good time, that's the band for you. They're just into having fun and making sure everybody else does. So that's he's a friend of mine, but I'm a fan of their music, and if I can do anything back in return, I gotta say, catch Oleo. I mean, they're the band, they're the guys to see. And that's why you didn't even know the phrase, there ain't no party like an Oleo party, and the guys always wear black, and then they've got their little ties. So I kind of did my tribute where I wore the black jacket and the white shirt. So it's the best I can do. I'm not the man in black, so that's all they were getting from me. So Arif, my friend, thank you. I'm so sorry I went over.
No, man.
You knew that was going to happen.
This is fantastic. This is everything and more that I expected.
Awesome.
This is awesome.
Thank you.
All right.
Awesome.
So this has been episode number 126, Inside the OMG. Thank you to Julian. Thanks you guys for watching and tuning in and participating. So appreciate you. Next week, we got more planned. It's just going to be me next Tuesday. But after that, we've got Jason Johnson, who's a film and TV music composer. He's worked on a lot of great projects, and I'm excited to have him as our studio guest. You're going to hear all about music composing and what life is like as a composer, writing for huge orchestras, and you're going to hear all about that. So until next week, have a great, safe week and weekend. We love you. Take care. Going to leave you with Champions.